Going on, Evil Dead fans? It's time to bind the pages. So as you can see, I've got the pages sandwiched between these two blocks of wood, and I have them clamped shut. Now, if you look, there's a little bit of irregularity there, and that's done slightly deliberately. I have a little bit of a curve to how I've binded them, and the reason is because you can't just glue them like this. I used to work at a copy center in Office Depot, and when we used to make the tearaway pads of paper, they would just put strips of glue on things like this, and then you could tear the pages out. So we need to secure them a little bit, and the way you do that, let's see here, here we go. You're going to take some twine, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a Dremel cutter. I like the easy cut Dremel heads because they pop off. So that's my preferred way of doing dremeling, and I particularly like the cutters that have those pop-off attachment heads. I think they're great. So what we're going to do is we're going to systematically do about 2 up top. I like to do about 1 inch and 1 inch, and then from the bottom 1 inch and 1 inch. If you have a smaller book, you can do like 1 centimeter. Currently have my setting on low. I like to push that just a little bit higher than that. And what we're going to do is, remember we had that extra 1/4 inch. And so that's what we're going to utilize. We're going to actually cut in that extra 1/4 inch. Let's get this one a little closer to the bottom. Excellent. So now, if we bring that up, and the shadow's perfect because you can see where I've cut in. This over here for the time being. Take the twine, just slide it into Alright, so that was a little messier than I wanted it to be, but we are getting the desired effect. So now we got to talk about adhering it into the binding. That's the part that we're currently dealing with. So there's a couple ways we can do this. You do want to wrap this with some type of paper. So the goal is to actually wrap the book. Now, if you recall, I had a very nice little situation with wax paper when I was working on this. So what I'm actually interested in doing is wrapping this with some of that. So what we've done is completed the binding. So we've gone and added the strip to hold it together, and that covers the twine that we put in. We've gone back and re-crinkled the pages a little bit to make them pop a little bit more. As you can see, holds it together nice. Also gives you that little bit down there and up there where you can kind of see the string. Kind of gives it that old school quality. Next step is to get this to go in here. Now, what you could do is run a big long thing of hot glue right in the middle and stick that sucker in there. And that is perfectly acceptable. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It'll move with the actual book. It'll look good. It could potentially come out, which could be, you know, a big pain in the ass for you. And there's nothing wrong with doing binding that way. If you want to do the Tom Sullivan style, you got to cut yourself some strips, attach it to your book, and then attach that to the inner pamphlet. So that way it sort of suspends it and holds it. And that's the way that he did it in the movie. So is that the best way to bind a book? No, it's not the best way to bind a book. It's actually kind of ugly. But it's old school, and it's the way he did it, so I'm kind of going. Now, what I usually like to do is have the inside have a bit of paper so that I have something better to attach this to, like I did mine in the Tom Sullivan style. So he had a lot of strips and things like that in his. So we don't really have that luxury. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this kind of the old-fashioned way. We're going to completely coat the back end of this with some contact cement. We're going to coat this with contact cement, and we're going to attach it. But this looks too perfect right now. So what we need to do is... Alright, so we have now finished the book. I apologize that some of the video that of me working on it's a little spotty. I had some memory issues. I actually had so many videos on my phone I hadn't deleted. The video would constantly turn off while I was in the middle of working, so I tried to go back and do it as many times as I can. So we finished Brett's book, so as you can see, we've got a lot of nice depth in the spine. The face was hard to interpret. I love the look of it, but I did want him to have it be a little bit more photogenic. So as I mentioned before, that may have got cut or not. I did do a brief little wash of ivory and then repainted the front. So it just has a little bit more of a photogenic pop. So if I do the back, you can see that there's a lot more shiny gook and grime and depth. That's what the front looked like, but you kind of lost some of the character of the face itself. So I muted it just a wee bit just for stylistic purposes. We open it up, and we have the Tom Sullivan style binding here. Again, this is purely to attach it to the book. It is just for fun. So if you look, the spine is not attached to the pages, and that was done deliberately, particularly when you have a thinner bound selection and a thicker spine. You don't want it to just kind of sit in the middle of nowhere and look lame. So this covers that up, and it allows the pages to move back and forth within the spine based on how much you open the book. So it does give it some mobility. That adds a little bit more fluffiness. And to fluff your pages, you can always just go in and crumple them up more as you go forward. And if you crumple each page individually, you'll continue to add depth. So as they flatten out on you, you can do that. So as you can see, the binding with the irregular pieces and everything looks really good. It looks like cloth. I decided not to use cloth just because it marries very well if you stick with the same paper that you were using. And so we do a quick once through of the pages, so you can see every page that's in here. I use different gook and grime here and there. I am going to burn some of the edges just a wee bit. I will do that later. I need this to dry. But this is basically it. This will be the last video. This is going to get sent off to Brett. You can see there's some staining going on there. You'll notice there's a little bits of blood spatter here and there, which is good. You want that. A little bit of blood in there. My favorite page. That was so hard for me to make too, to find all that artwork. Pain in the ass. And the rear cover. So, as you can see, gorgeous book. Looks great. The pages really eat up the depth however you decide to leave it. So the thicker, it comes off with a very interesting looking thickness because of the spine used. It actually sits thicker than mine does, so it has that sort of bigger than it actually is look, which will display great. And when you open it up, the pages look like they fit marvelously, because they do. And then I'm just going to go in and do some burning. And that's it, man. That's the Book of the Dead. So hope you guys enjoyed it.